welcome and thank you to everybody who's attending our session today. The topic for this session is testing tools, a structured approach to exploratory testing.
Hi everyone, I'm Apoorva Ram. I currently work as a test lead at Capital QA.
And I'm Mahathee. I work as a project lead with Persistent Systems at Hyderabad.
So the next 90 minutes is going to be an activity-based learning that we are going to have. So we learn how to familiarize ourselves with any new product or feature or requirement that comes up, and how not to get lost in unstructured explorations. So many a times we get different features, and while we are testing one particular feature or we're trying to understand that particular feature, it so happens that we come across a small bug, or it could be some issue that has happened, and then we try to explore it and dig it deep further and further, and sometimes we get so lost in that exploration that we don't focus on the other parts of the application. So we learn how not to get lost in that way, and we learn to how to understand the product in different aspects by looking at it at different perspectives, with different set of eyes in limited time. And we'll try to learn one of the structured ways to approach exploratory testing. And while we try to understand all of this, it will help us to anticipate risk and perform coverage driven testing. And one disclaimer that we want to do at the start of this workshop is that testing tools is not equal to exploratory testing. It is an approach that we would take to understand and get familiarized with our application or a product, so that we plan our exploratory testing or charters in that manner or in that way, and prioritize which ones or which are the important tests that we should be doing first. So that is all the information that testing tools will help us obtain. So we'll do a small activity now. So in this activity, what we want you to do is, we all know about LinkedIn platform, right? So you can open the LinkedIn platform on your laptop, on your mobiles, or any other devices that you have. And then we want you to explore it, get familiarized with the application, gather some important information about the different features that are there on LinkedIn, and come up with a testing approach. Like, if you have to test LinkedIn, how would you test it, or what are the different approaches that you would take? And we just want you to go through it, familiarize yourself with the application, and come up with a testing approach in the next 10 minutes. So this is the first activity we are going to do, and your time starts now. If you have any questions regarding this, you can ask us. Otherwise, you can just explore the application and come up with your observations.
So the
The activity is to you have to open LinkedIn platform either on the website or on your mobile devices and explore that application, get familiarized with the product's features, its offerings, and come up with your observations or testing approach that you would take if you had to test LinkedIn as a platform or as an application. Last few seconds. You can start pasting in the chat whatever information you've found about the product, whatever approach you took, whatever information or features, important features that you could find. Okay, log in, search for connections, able to connect, able to message, yes, post reactions. Like, comments, job profile, yes. Premium features, yes. Okay, let's look at what are the different things that we could find. So within the given time, which was 10 minutes, were you able to familiarize with the product? Because this is a product I guess everybody is using and everybody knows. But in an unfamiliar situation, just imagine that you get some product requirements or new features that are going to come up for your projects or applications, where you have to familiarize yourself with that features. So, do you think you do get enough time to explore and familiarize yourself with the application or the requirements? Ask yourself that question. What were some of the most important features that you felt for LinkedIn were? Post, user activities, connect, messages, analytics, job search, profile view, comments, characters. Yes. Okay, now let's look at what were some of the least important features according to you. Any least important features? Were you able to identify different user personas that would be using this product? It could be in terms of different user types, user roles who would be using this product. Did you think through that while that time was given? Yes, a premium user and a free user. The features and functionalities change when it's a paid user and it's a free user. Yes, permission-based roles. What were some of the most important use cases? Like, what would a user use LinkedIn for? What were the some most important use cases? Could you come up with those things? Were you able to identify any user risks or business risks that would be associated with this platform? Were you able to identify any gaps in the platform? Were you able to understand how the product processes information? So a lot of information goes inside this platform and then it processes it and then it gets displayed, right? So how the system is processing this entire information, did you think through that? Were you able to notice how data is flowing? Well, let's suppose you create a profile. So how that data is going, even when you message someone or you're sending out an email message to somebody, how it is being transferred, or what are all the different data that this platform is using and how it is using and how it is flowing. That's one area. Were you able to identify other applications and software that this product is interacting with? It could be in terms of third-party applications, softwares, etc. Right?
So we draw our essence of this workshop from Michael Kelly's Turing Mnemonic. And apart from this, we also have read the works of Dr. Kem Kena and Dr. James Whittaker's book on exploratory testing. So coming to what is testing tour all about. So imagine you are visiting a new city. You don't have any plan or a map. You're just wandering. So now you can find a very beautiful place, and sometimes your time and effort will be wasted, but you go to a place which you totally didn't like. Now, when you're learning a product, that is through exploration without any kind of a structured approach, it's very easy to get lost. So we might get a bug, and based on the bug, we can just keep investigating one particular area, and we might lose track of time. So we might be completely immersed in one feature. And then in order to make most precious use of our time and efforts and to acquaint ourselves with the product, we are using a structured methodology. And this structured methodology is nothing but our testing tours. So there are systematic ways to explore any product, just like a guide or a tour or your friend will help you explore a new city in a structured way. These testing tours also will help you to get familiarized with the product when you have a short time. So you can identify the bugs, the intricacies, the risks in the product, and also you can improve your test coverage and identify the critical areas for your testing. So why do you need a tour? So like I told you, when we are solving any puzzle, we just don't focus on a single piece. We analyze the picture as a whole, and then we identify the different patterns, the connections, and the crucial pieces of it. Similarly, when we are doing testing tours, we are sorting the pieces of the product, and each tour is focusing on a product, and it will help you understand how different pieces fit in a puzzle. You can do a complete tour and gather insights about your product, its risks, and the different features and bugs. So coming to the benefits of testing tours, it is one of the ways of structured exploration, and it's not the only way. So after your testing tour, you get a checklist of items, and based on these checklist of items, for example, if you're getting a list of errors or a list of variables, you can channelize your testing around those areas. Suppose I have toured my application and I got a list of errors. I can tour my application based on those errors, and I can contribute to the errors part of the coverage of the application. Similarly, I'm not the only person who's using the product. There are multiple other users who are using this product, and we can look at the product from different perspectives while using a testing tool. And the next thing is, when touring an application, we find different features that could be potential risks. So while you look at a risk, you simply don't keep quiet. You also highlight and identify these risks and prioritize your application according to these risks. And last and the most important part is it contributes towards your coverage. Coverage is a very important aspect. When you test or tour a product, you also expect that you cover the most important features in your application or product. So the core of any exploration activity is touring. And this touring need not necessarily be done by a single person. If you're an agile team or any team, you can, two members can combine, and suppose say one member is focusing on feature 2, the other person can focus on any other tool. And also you can split this into sessions. It's not that you have to sit for 1 hour or 2 hours and finish your touring work and come back. You can just take a break and you can recharge yourself and also come back and do this.
So we are in this workshop, we are going to cover FCC Cutwits. It's a popular touring mnemonic that was given by Michael Kelly. So with this LinkedIn application that we discussed before, we are going to try to understand how we applied FCC Cutwits there and how to apply FCC Cutwits as a touring heuristic to any other application that is given to you or any other product or feature is given to you. So the first tour is called the feature tour. So the feature tour is basically touring in and around all the features that are there within your application. So they could be, so while we spoke about posting, we spoke about job search. So that's one but particular feature. Networking is one feature. Recommendations is one feature. So there are different types of features that are there, right? And again, the controls that these features have, what these features can do, what are its capabilities, what it can do, and how it will do. So trying to understand that, like going to every feature, trying to understand what that feature is and what that feature does and how it is doing it is a feature tool. So while if we want to do a feature tour for LinkedIn, so we go feature by feature, we try to understand what are its capabilities, what it can do, and how it can do. That would be a feature tour for that application. Next is a complexity tool. So complexity, the name itself tells us that what are all the complex features that are there in that product or application or requirement that we've got. So it could be in terms of a feature which is a very complex feature. So if we look at LinkedIn example again, so the search algorithm is one complex feature. The recommendations, like how you get your network recommendations or post recommendations or job recommendations. So there's an algorithm behind, right, which does all of this. So that's a complex algorithm that we would have in that particular application. Similarly, some complex data. So if we are dealing with some complex data, so that could be a complexity. A user flow could be there could be a user flow that is very complex, like doing simultaneous actions, multiple actions at a time, or one after the other. So all of this is a complex user flow. And some algorithms that would be there, which would be very complex to test, or we would need some extra effort or concentration or focus to try to understand it and then gather some required test data around it and then test it. So all those would be the complexities within the application. So a complexity tool would basically focus on try to identify what are the complex things in the application or product or requirement that we've got. Next is a claim store. So claim store basically talks about trying to understand what claims does this product make. So this helps us to understand the consistency within the product. So when a product says that we do this, we offer this, whether they're really offering it, whether that functionality or feature that they have mentioned, is it working according to that claim that they have made? It is. So this tour is basically touring all of these around all of these. So the claims could be implicit claims and explicit claims. So implicit claims would be something which is within the application. So within the application, you see some claims that, right? So those would be in-app claims would be the implicit claims, and explicit claims would be something that they are using in their advertising or documentation or some training or tutorial material that they have, and some marketing emails or promotions or messages that they send out. So all of these would be claims, and we check for the consistency of the product across all these claims. So when they are saying on Play Store or App Store, they are claiming something that this works with this platform, this does these are the important features, and this is how it is helping the users. So we try to go through all of these claims, and we try to see whether the product is consistent across all these claims that are being made. And then we try to understand that whether it is all these claims that it has made, whether it's fulfilling all these claims, is it able to do all these claims that it's promising. So if let's suppose say it says it works on Android 7, so we try and go and see that whether it works for that. When it's claiming that it works for Android 7, does it work there or it doesn't. So we try to figure out all these things in the claim store.
So the next one that we are going to look on is about the configuration tool. In the configuration tool, we basically look into what are the settings of the product, whether it may be the hardware settings or the software settings. And in case of the mobile device, the in-app settings or the device settings. So now you're basically going to vary or change the settings of your product and see how things work. So what can you change in this? And what can you persist? Suppose if you are shutting down your system and you opening it, can you see what is persisting and what is not? And then how is this going to impact your performance?
So in-app settings could also be some settings that the app would have. So the LinkedIn app itself has some in-app settings, which is some account preferences or privacy settings that you want to have. So all of that come under in-app settings. And device settings could be something like network or connecting with your internet or some notification. So sometimes you have an option right within your phone where you turn off notifications for certain apps. So how is it interacting with those device settings? So all of that would again come under device settings. So basically configuration is trying to go towards all the settings that are there within the application and trying to do those settings and trying to see what happens if I do this, what happens if I do that, and trying to understand how those settings work and how our product is reacting or interacting when we change all these settings.
So the next store that we will be covering is the user tool. So various types of user application. Some of the types of users here that we see are the favored user, that is the kind of users who like your application or who are really satisfied with the features that you have provided. The disfavored user, some people who are not really happy with what kind of features or offerings that you have for your product or an application. And the malicious user. The malicious user is someone who breaks or tries to hack your system. So these are the kinds of users. And basically, when you build a product or an application, you're building it with the end user or customer in your mind. So different users deal with the product in different ways. Basically, when they use a product, they would want a certain feature or a functionality of a product to work in a particular way. So they would, for example, if they are performing some operation, what is the kind of output they are getting from that kind of an operation is one of the things that user want to see. And what will be affected if we change this? Or what are some kind of typical operations that I can do as a user? So these are some things that we would be covering as a part of the user tool. Next. So the next thing is the testability tool. As a part of the testability tool, we will be covering the interfaces, the log files, and the tools. So basically, we are going to build a support for testing of our product. We identify the testable features of our product. So every feature is not going to be completely testable. So you as a team member or as a tester or a developer should think about testability as an aspect to add into your system. So in the requirements phase of your product, if you think your user story does not have a particular something is missing in your product, you should see how you can add testability to your product there. So for example, since we are considering the LinkedIn application, if your LinkedIn application is interacting with a third-party API or a system, and some messages or data is being passed, and you want to see what is the kind of message or the data or the information that is going, you can request for log files. So log files are one of the features of a testability tool. So one of the things that we'll be looking here. And for tools, so suppose we are doing API testing, we can consider different tools that we are going to consider here. It could be Rest Assured, it could be Postman, or any other tool that would aid this. And the different kinds of interfaces. So we will be having a system interface or a command line interface. So what are all the different interfaces for your application? Not every application or product will have the same type of tools or interfaces or log files or the testable features. Based on your application, you can try and see how you can make it testable according to your context. So the next one that we are seeing here is the scenario tool. So we have seen the user tool. So the scenario tool also draws from the user tools. So basically here you are covering the user journeys and some of the realistic use cases or edge cases. User journeys are nothing but, suppose I'm logging into a LinkedIn application. I can just change my password, or I can write a post, or edit my post, or schedule a post. I can just scroll through, or I can comment, or I can apply for a job. So these are certain user journeys, some end-to-end journeys. And realistic use cases. Realistic use cases are nothing but the use cases or scenarios that you see in everyday, day-to-day situations. Or how would a normal user perceive LinkedIn, or how would what kind of use cases are applicable to these people? And edge cases are those scenarios or situations which are less considered as compared to user journeys or realistic use cases.
Next is variability tool. So variability tool is basically trying to identify what are the different variables within your product or application that's there. So for the LinkedIn example that we took, the variables could be the posts, your profile picture, your bio that you write, the different interactions that we do, the likes, comments, all of these are different variables which change over time, right? So we try, when we are doing a variability tour, we try to identify all the different variables that are there within that particular product or requirement. And then we try to think on what happens when we change the values of those variables. What happens, how is the system responding or interacting? And then we try to do a tour of that, like how based on changing certain variable, how the state of the application is changing, how the values are changing. So all of that comes under variability tour. So when we vary these, so when we identify the variables, it's important that we list them down, and then we try to identify which are the high risk variables and which are the low risk ones. So if there is a particular feature which is of high risk, that would be of priority for us to test, and similarly a low risk one would be of low priority. So while we do this tour, it gives us all the product attributes which are variables. And then based on that, we try to vary them, and then we do this tour. The next one is the interoperability tour. So with the name itself tells us, right, the operability of that feature on different set of devices, different set of OS versions, interaction with some third-party applications, drivers and plugins that are required for this particular product or feature to function. So trying to take a tour of all of this is interoperability tour. So what are different hardwares that are interacting with this application? The different OS versions could be the supported OS versions for Android and iOS. Third-party applications could be like, so we use LinkedIn to apply to different jobs on different job portals or job sites. So that is one third-party integration where our data is being pushed from LinkedIn to that job portal. So different drivers and plugins that are required, all of that would be covered under interoperability tool.
Next thing is the data tool. Test data is an integral part of your testing activity. So when you are testing your product, you can use different kind of testing data. One which is constant or variable, or the default data, or certain kind of CRUD operations. And while using your product or application, you will be monitoring what is the input that you give to your system and what is the output that you're getting for the corresponding input, and what other data the system or the product is interacting with. You might think a data tool is similar to a variable tool, but it is not. In a variable tool, You will be finding or identifying the variables corresponding to your application or product. And in the data tool, you will be identifying what values you are going to give to these set of variables. So this is what your data tool is all about. And in CRUD operations, are you able to create something? Create a new set of data. If you are creating your profile, are you able to give new sets of data on LinkedIn? And are you able to read data? And are you able to modify something or update something and delete if you no longer need it? And what is the default data that you can see? There are some things which are default and some things which are not. So the next one. So the last one here is the structure tool. Structure means the complete composition or architecture of the product. It means the code, the hardware, the database, the software, the underlying interfaces, the security part of it, the processing packages, or the associated websites or the servers that you're interacting with. The code is nothing but your source code. Hardware, as I told, processors, servers, or associated websites. So your databases, SQL, NoSQL, MongoDB, whatever you're using. So these are the kinds of databases. So now that we have covered the mnemonic, do you have any questions from the audience? We are ready to take up questions if you have. Harsh or Deepti, can you read out if we have any questions? Or you can also unmute and ask.
Yeah, people can unmute and ask if you guys have any question.
Yeah.
Let me check if there is any question there.
Sure.
So we have a question from Chandra asking, told about the least important and most important features. How are we defining it? Is it people who does the tour or the business or both? So it's a very good question, Chandra. So what we try to do is when we are taking a tour. So for example, if you are an individual person in your team who's taking a tour, then you list down the features and then you try to interact with your business and product teams to understand and come up with which are the important features, which are the least important, which are the most important, and that's how you prioritize. So when you using this mnemonic, you can list down, prepare a checklist of your features, and then you can go to your product and business and try to understand, like, from a user perspective and from a tester's perspective, I think these are the important features. But again, along with the business and the product, discussing with them, you have to come up with what is the business severity of it, what is the user severity of it, and then you prioritize it on that basis. And it depends context to context, product to product, it varies. So yeah. Is the next question is variability tool means test with different set of data. Can we say it is data testing? It could be. So data is also something, if you're varying, then it could be data testing. Along with data, so there are other variables also that you could change, right? So all of it are come under variability tool. But yeah, data testing is one of the variable tool. But here, while we are doing a tour, we are not actually testing it. We are trying to familiarize ourselves. We are trying to understand the application and then prioritize and then go about testing it. So that's the difference. Hope I was able to answer that.
Yeah. Any other questions?
So if we don't have any questions, we can move to the next activity that we have planned. Okay. So this is the activity 2, where what we want you to do is take 15 minutes of time, and from the FCC cutbits that we have discussed, the different tools that are there, which is features, claims, configuration, complexity, user tour, testability, scenario, variability, interoperability, data, and structure. You can pick any one of the tours of your choice and then do a tour brief tour, I would say, not a complete tour, a brief tour of this same application, and then come up with which tour did you choose, what did you find, and how did the chosen tour help you. So we are going to start this activity now, and your time starts now. You have 15 minutes. I'll paste in the chat if you want a brief of FCC Katowice. So you can take any of the door, pick any of the door, and just come up with your observations on which door did you pick, how did it help you, and what are all the things that you found.
You can do it as a combination with your friends who are there, or you can do it single also. And you can pick, if you are familiar with feature tour, you can just do only a feature tour. Or if you think data and user are the easiest ones, you can go for that. And claims is also another easy one. So pick whatever is feasible to you and just put your observations. There's no wrong or correct. Sure, Ravi. So if you finished completing a particular tour, you don't have to just paste in the chat. You can also unmute and talk to me or Apoorva. And not necessary that if you complete a feature tour or any tour is not going to be complete. Consider what all aspects you can cover for a particular kind of tour. You can also share your screen, whatever is feasible to you. So, Apoorva, meanwhile, would you like to share your experience of any tour, like Ravi suggested, of any tour that you did?
Yeah, so for me, most of the tours were quite useful. So I've been doing feature tours most of the times. Any new product comes in or any new requirement comes in, you can go up with the feature tour and also the complexity tour. And if it is if it is in terms of in the form of a requirement, but sometimes you have a existing product that's in the market and it comes for you to test. Then you can go with the claims, configuration, users, who are the different users that would be using the product. And you could do different tours along with your testing teams, along with your product teams, and then you can assess which are the tours that are, which are the features that are the most important ones, and then go about prioritizing them than the rest. So it basically tells you which are the important tests, and it segregates the important tests, most important tests from the mediocre or low important tests, which you could do later. So in that way, it has helped me a lot. And yeah, so that's the reason I wanted to share about this testing tools topic at ATGTR.
So when it comes to my experience, I could relate mostly to is the feature tour and the data tour, because data is an indispensable part of all the applications that you test. So most of the applications. So at work, I have dealt with feature tour, data tour, and user tour. These and also as a part of my requirements discussion with my team, I will also ask for the testability part of it. So these are some things that I can relate to. So it's not necessary that you use all these tools. So the most common tools that you can use is feature tool. This will be applicable to most products that you use or test. So according to your context, you can pick up what suits you and you can pair up with your friend and you can do it. So for purpose of testing, we have considered many applications. We did while we were prepping up for this workshop. We did try things with the Spotify application. It's a great application to try, and we also considered Slack, one of our applications. So these are certain experiences. And when also, how do tools help us? We test different kinds of products. If you're in a project that is lasting for years, that is a different case. But if you're testing different kinds of applications from different domains, and when you see a new product, most people start panicking. And how should I go about it? What is the important criteria to consider, or things like this? So touring will help you there. So how did Michael Kelly also come up with this mnemonic is when he encountered a new application or to test. So James Park had given him this idea based on the Turing heuristic, and that was how this came about. So Has anybody in the audience used any of this so far?
It could be a brief tour. It need not be a detailed tour. You could briefly come up and give whichever tour that you have taken for the application, LinkedIn application.
So last 3 minutes. Okay. Someone has posted.
Okay. Variability tour, Anandita has done. Okay, there's a user tour. Any other tours that you guys are doing? Last few seconds to go. Okay. So anyone wants to come up for a debrief session on what tour did they pick, and what are the different things that they found, and why did they choose that particular tour? So we'll go with variability tour where Anindita has said number of jobs displayed, notification, messages, yes, now people in network, number of likes, comments, profile picture, LinkedIn news, profile viewers, post impressions, ads on the page. Yes. Again, a user tour is about individual users who could be job seekers, who could be regular users, who could be some content creators who are using it, who could be some recruiters, some community or groups that are there. Those could be some of the users. Some organizations have their own LinkedIn pages, right? So it could be a business user. So different users again here. Scenario, new user registration, login, new and existing users, add network connection, accept network connections, yes. So the ones who have done these tours, we wanted to ask, how did this particular tour help you? Did it help you find some new information? Did it help you to come up with test ideas?
Yes, to me, for user tools, it was like, as you told, thinking from different perspective, like what if a user is posting, what if there is a job seeker, or what if it is a group, or let's say a community post. So of course, it is giving a different perspective or different view.
Yep. Any others who would like to share their experience on this activity? Okay, moving on.
Yes. We are going to deal with some other tours also. The previous set of tours that you saw were based on the mnemonic given by Michael Kelly. And these are some tours that we saw as a part of Whitaker's findings, Dr. James Whitaker's. And this is the landmark tour. So the landmark tour is nothing but a landmark is a particular spot or an area. So you find a particular spot or area in your product, tour that area and go to the next area to explore. Here, your idea is not to go deep dive into the product, but you are just spotting one area first and finding out the aspects of it. The next one is the supermodel tour, which means that you're superficially touring the product just on the surface, by the look and feel of the product. The outer area is your concern. You're not deep diving or going into the depths. The anti-social tour. The anti-social means not according to the usual norms or the usual ways of how you would tour a product, and the not so used patterns. So this can be considered as an anti-social tour. And next, the money tour. This is an important part because you are dealing with a set of customers, and for a product, for every product, you will have mostly a sales or a marketing team that will prioritize a set of list or a list of features, and they'll be investing certain money on that. So your money tour will be focusing on touring those set of list of features which are important to your marketing or sales teams. And now the couch potato tour. Couch potato, as the word itself says, that it's not so interested, a person who's not so interested and who sits down in a corner, lazy, laid back. So you're not even putting the minimal or least effort that is required to tour a product. So these were some other tours that we encountered. And like this, there are many other tours you can explore and you can use it. Not every tour that we say here was useful to us as a part of our applications. We used it interchangeably. So yeah, and the result of any tour will be a checklist, and based on these checklists, you can prioritize your efforts And when you're exploring, you can deep dive into an area, but when you're finding bugs and as a part of tours, you may not have all the time to explore the bug. So after finishing your tours, you can channelize all your efforts to finding an area, exploring it, and going and deep diving further. Yeah.
So while there are many tools that are available, there is no such tool which you could say that this is the one best tool or this is the best tool that would be applicable in all contexts. So each context and each product and each requirement is different. So according to that, we can use any particular tool and then find the relevant or important information that is needed. So what next? So when we have done the tours, we have found out all the information through our activity, then what do we do next? So we will try to find out relevant tools that are relevant to our context and then use those tools to find out the different features or claims or capabilities of the application. So for example, if you can see here while we were talking about the LinkedIn, so sign up is one of the LinkedIn features where again it has different capabilities or which we call as functions, which could be like sign up with email, phone number, Google account. So different capabilities are there for this particular feature. So while we are doing the feature tour, we write down that feature, and then while we are touring it, we write down the different capabilities that that particular feature has to offer. And then when we list down, it creates a checklist for us where we can go and try to find out some gaps in the requirements or ask some relevant questions. Like if you find that some capability that is missing, if you want to use your social account to log in, so that's not there, right? So similarly, there could be some other features you feel that should be there or aren't there, and you want to bring it up to your product team. So this checklist helps you to cover those gaps, to try to cover those gaps, ask the relevant questions when you sit with the product team. And then what you do is, along with asking those questions, relevant questions to identify the gaps, you could also do this severity mapping for the customer and business. So there will be different features are there, right? So what is the customer severity of it? What is the business severity of that particular feature and its capability? Based on this, you can have a risk score, which is a high risk, a medium risk, or a low risk, right? So after you have this risk score, this will help you to prioritize which are the features or functionalities and capabilities that you should pick up first and which are the ones that you could pick up later. So while you have all of this, this is not a tour is not something only the testers can do. You can sit along with your dev, along with your product, and all along with your business teams, and then each of you picks up a tour, and then you all of you together collaborate and discuss like why they feel this is important, why you feel this is important, why a developer feels that this is an important feature. And then based on that, you can come up with conclusion that these are some of the important things that we would want to take up for this sprint or the next sprint, and then you go about testing it. So testing tour would give you relevant information, important information about the product and its features and its capabilities that will help you to strategize and plan your testing. And then you can go about deep diving into any particular feature or functionality and plan your testing ahead. And this checklist will help you in the long run as well. Like if you have a checklist of all your features that your product has to offer, suppose there's a new functionality or feature that is coming up, so you can just come up here and add to this list whatever new feature or functionality that is getting added, and its capabilities you can add it, and again you can map the severity, business severity and customer severity, and the risk score along with it. And it also helps you to have an overview of your entire application or product. And one more thing is that just having this for once or twice, if you do, it will not help you you have to practice it with your teams so that you get different perspectives, different set of eyes for the same feature, and you test the product holistically.
So a quick recap of what all we have seen. So we saw the problems with the unstructured approach or ways of testing. And then we gave you an activity where you had to do some kind of exploration activity. Within 10 minutes, you had to come up with what all areas you could cover. Some of you also said that 10 minutes wasn't enough. And the next one we saw why should you consider testing tours and what are testing tours? What are the advantages or benefits of this? We also covered the mnemonic FCC cutbits, and we explained what you could cover as a part of each tour. And we also gave you an activity after that, but how can you use this mnemonic to the activity previously given activity? And then what are the other tours that we encountered? And the next set of steps that you could follow after the tour. So we are open to question and answers. If you have any other questions, you could post it here or unmute yourself and ask.
So guys, any questions for Mahathee and Apoorva? They've done a wonderful job in doing some exercises and letting you run through the tours. Very well done.
Thank you, Aditya sir.
Thank you, Aditya.
Do you think that when you are using some form of, like for example, maybe post-it notes in a real classroom, this would turn out to be a very wonderful, more exciting kind of workshop, or maybe when you're doing it with a little more collaboration, it would be very interesting, right?
Yes, absolutely, Aditya sir. We were anticipating for an offline workshop where we could have teams do it in all these activities in teams, and it would be a more collaborative effort. Yeah.
Yeah, pulling this through on a virtual actually is very difficult. I understand. This is more like an agile workshop being done. So,
Yeah.
have you ever seen session sheets, or were you using session sheets as well somewhere? Have you heard about something called as session sheets?
Are you talking about session-based test management?
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Because we have found that very useful when you're basically, see, when we talk about documenting something and experimenting something, taking down notes also helps a lot. So,
Yes.
session sheets is a great example when you are doing something, right?
Yes.
And did you go through, or basically, were you there in a morning workshop that Kushan did? By any chance, were you there?
Yes, we were there.
Yeah, those were tools as well. Maybe this workshop we can actually intersperse with some tools as well. My idea maybe it's a different way of looking at. This is a wonderful work that you have done. It's just that yeah, maybe some improvisations on a virtual world.
Absolutely.
For the second activity, we in fact wanted to divide people into teams. Since we have Zoom, we wanted to have breakout rooms if there were 30 or 45 people, but the turnout is huge.
Yeah. So difficult basically when the interactions are less, right? But again, wonderful. So from the audience, anybody would like to comment who participated in this exercise-driven workshop that Mahathee and Apoorva did? Anybody would like to comment anything here?
Guys, you can just unmute and share your views maybe. Yeah. Ravi, I think you're unmuted, but your voice is not that audible.
Is audible now?
Yes.
Okay. I kind of apply this practice in my work. So I've been doing this for like last 15 years. So what I see is on the web, people like or and this comes. So it's usually applied to the product, like what we see and we can use. But I started applying this to the code, like what we write. So when I pick a code for a feature or the code written for for a test, so I apply like for example this one the configuration. So I would trace that what is the configuration and how it is maintained and how that gets pulled. So that is one of the ways it has benefited the teams with which I work in testing. And the same, today I was doing, in my practice was I applied this one, the variables and the configurations for the Docker and Kubernetes content in my current project. I was like exploring, okay, what can I, fine tune so that, so that the request handling will not be timed out for my test automation. So yeah, it is not just for the product, okay, which we see or on the screen or on the apps. It also can be applied with a change of mindset and attitude to the code as well. So that's one thing I wanted to add. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for your feedback. Any other comment before we wind up this session?
Hi. Hi. Just wanted to share the feedback. Like this has given a like good kind of a checklist, I will say, because ultimately each project, each feature is different, and everybody need to brainstorm according to their needs. But sometimes team also find it like what all to check. I mean, this also for a reference need to be available. Then it might be helpful more to the team. So yeah, I mean, this has given a good checklist for us. I mean, so thank you for that. With this, just one question. So, I mean, this is kind of a vast checklist, I will say. I mean, not every time it is possible to check each and every aspect. So, I think you had already said, but any specific set which you would like to recommend that this is like minimal, if you really want to do a good thorough testing, which if you want to say.
So yeah,
So
the
yeah, this
mnemonic
mnemonic
test
test.
features, claims, complexity, configuration. So the mnemonic itself is a checklist. So you can use it while there are a lot of tools. This mnemonic is popularized because it covers all the important aspects and gives you good coverage. So you can try with the mnemonic. FCC Cutswitz.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good. I think thank you so much. This has been a wonderful session, Mahathee and Apoorva.
These were the resources we used, particularly Exploratory Software Testing book by James Whittaker and Michael D. Kelly's blog on for the mnemonic and Dr. Kem Kena's work. You can refer to BBST test design videos, which talks about touring and the taxonomy of the tours in detail. On YouTube, you can get these as free videos. So these are also a great deal. You can hear why each tour is used and in depth, and it has some great examples too. So finally, the references we used, we would be sharing our presentation and what all we used to our audiences and with the GTR team also. And yeah, so thank you. We hope that this workshop will help you and you will all start performing tours as a part of your test sessions. And you'll also be more deliberate with your observations and craft a lot of useful tests and better understand your products. We thank the entire team of GTR for giving us both this opportunity to present our workshop, and see you all next year with a new workshop in GTR 24.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Apoorva and Mahathee. You have been wonderful. You have been with us for some years now, and we respect your presence as a speaker and a collaborator. Always so happy to be with to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for attending this workshop and hope to see you next week in Pune. We are even attending the interactive sessions there. So yeah, see you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.